What we were.
What you were, yeah.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Regular board meeting for Tuesday, January 11th. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you for joining us on a cold, frigid night. I guess we will begin with Budget Committee updates. Jenny?
Public hearing on school and budget is here at Hampton Academy beginning at 7. Beginning at 7 o'clock on Thursday night.
That's this Thursday?
This Thursday here.
Okay,
That's going to be the SAU as well?
SAU 90 and the town. School is going first.
okay. Wellness, Andrea?
We don't have anything at this point in time.
School Boards Association, nothing at this time. Scheduling, Frank, anything?
No,
No.
nothing.
SLC? No.
Nothing there either.
Rec Department, Andrea?
Yeah, so
Could you
they-
move the mic closer, please?
Yeah, sorry. Take this up. So yeah, they have, openings still in their beginner ukulele, Tai Chi, and watercolor card painting. On Monday and Wednesday mornings now, they are open at the Rim for a couple of hours for, kind of like adult indoor gym recess time. There's pickleball, there's indoor walking group. And again, it's more just a fun kind of gym setting. And one of the big things that's happening is that grades 3 through 5, and it's on their website, you can see it, Innovation Nation with the Mad Science of Maine. It's after school for 8 Thursdays from January 20th through March 17th. There is a cost to it, but their scholarships are available. So it sounded like a fun program.
Okay. Policies, Andrea, Wendy?
We met virtually on Friday, and we have some stuff to present tonight.
Okay. Are we going to get that down below when we do policies?
Yeah.
Down, okay. Professional development, Jenny?
Nothing.
No. PTA, Wendy?
Let's see, I've got a list. We had the Santa event in December at WEM that brought in over $300 in gift cards and winter gear for local families. Plus, it raised about $200 for the Gather organization. The spirit gear that was ordered has not come in yet. They are having supply chain issues and they have not gotten a delivery date yet. I think it's frustrating for everybody, and they're just waiting to hear when that's going to come in. And last but not least, the Reflections Art Show has been put in place at the library. So you can come in anytime the library's open, which is 10 to 6 Monday through Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturdays. And it's up in the lane room downstairs. You can just walk through and take a look at all the great art that the kids put together this year.
Okay, thank you. Negotiations, Frank and I, nothing. Steering committee, Frank?
Nothing to report.
Curriculum, Andrea, Wendy?
Yeah, I'll be meeting tomorrow. I don't know if Wendy's going to be there, but they're starting a curriculum review for the ELA, English Language Arts. The mid-year is coming up, so I know all 3 schools have got some different types of testing going on to measure progress and assess the need for perhaps remediation, intervention, or enrichment. Mike Anderson continues to work with staff in each school to blend the socio-emotional learning into the curriculum lessons and/or separate. And I would like to just again say that our schools have been the front runner on the project or performance-based learning. So I think we're going to maybe see something of that tonight, which again, it's a highlight in our schools, and a lot of schools don't do that, but we do. And that's it.
Master plan, Frank?
We met back in December, and they have asked to make a presentation to this board. I believe they're going to be reaching out to Lois sometime in the near future, unless they reached out to you. Okay, so
No.
they will be making a presentation to the board sometime in February.
Okay, thank you. Public comment on agenda items. I don't see anybody from the public here. So we'll just move along. Mr. Lannon, Center School? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you all. Thank you, Andrea. Andrea highlighted a couple things going on at Center School, which is great. We have, as she said, some curriculum measures going on, both state, both some national testing as well as curriculum-based measures. I'm going to highlight a little later tonight the annual film festival, Nonfiction Film Festival that we did. So I'll give you a little snippet of how that went great. Some professional development with Mike Anderson we had just recently, and it's great. He's going to be coming to Center School 3 times, and he spent the first time working with IAs as well as each grade level. Special ed was included in that as well as part of the grade level teams. And as Andrea mentioned, we did blend SEL and the curriculum together. So teachers need to know that it's not separate. It's you know, when we do the overlay of the standards, how it does align, and it can be taught within the curriculum, which was great. And he did some demonstration, believe it or not, with math and numbers and stretching and blurting out and how to handle blurting out with the youngest ones, especially kindergarten. So it was really nice to have him there. He met with the teachers first, did a mini lesson, then came back and debriefed with them again, which was really helpful. They really enjoyed it, and we're going to have 2 more opportunities to do that as well. So we're looking forward to that. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Mr. Lannon?
Thank you. See
Okay,
you soon.
thank you. Mr. Sadler?
Hello. So, all right. A couple of things going on at Marston aside from what you already read in the report. Just for families and community members listening, we are having a yearbook cover contest right now. Because we weren't doing the Provident Bank Art Show and we used a lot of our artwork for our calendar sales this year, we decided to switch up our yearbook cover a little bit. So the theme is the world around us, and we're asking students to take photos of what that means to them and the world around them, and then submit them to the school by January 19th. And then we'll have a team of staff members at the school kind of go through and select the top 3 or 4 to put on the cover and back cover of our yearbook. So a little something fun, little something different, different medium in terms of the art that we're doing. Also, a fun event coming up in January 19th as well is our spelling bee for 5th grade. It's going to be a live virtual event. So we're going to have the spellers socially distance with the 2 judges and our MC. They'll be in one area, and the rest of the 5th grade students will be in their classrooms, and parents will be able to log on Google Meet as well. So the normal people that would be invited will be invited. They just won't actually be coming into the building. But it's just a great way for everyone to participate in a fun activity. On January 21st, we're going to have our celebration of kindness, and that is to kick off the National Great Kindness Challenge that Marston School has been participating in for years. We are always emphasizing positive pro-social behaviors, but it's just a great week to put an extra emphasis on it and remind kids about the power of kindness and that words do matter and that kindness counts. So it's another wonderful thing we're kind of looking forward to during the chilly, dark months of winter here. But other than that, just normal month doing mid-year testing, the same as Center and Hampton Academy, and we'll talk about that a little later on. And just trying to stay warm and stay safe in the snow.
Any questions for Mr. Sadler?
All right, thank you so much.
And Mr. O'Connor?
Good evening. You have my report. A couple things that aren't on there is we didn't start our ski club on Friday, obviously, because of the snowstorm. But we will be going this Friday, and they've made some accommodations for the schools. If a student is out for a an absence for a COVID-related reason, they're going to provide us a pass for that day. And because we canceled on Friday, they're going to add an additional day to our program. 100 students and 20 brave parents and 4 staff members are joining us. We're in the middle of our grade level spelling bees. They're happening at school. Our finals are at the end of the month, and they'll be after school, and we will obviously televise them, or we'll put them on our Shock News program. Our Shock News took a hiatus last week. We had a staff member out who runs that program. As all the other schools did, we made do, but Shock News will be back this week, live. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. O'Connor? Anyone?
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thank you. Dr. DeSalva Napton? Howdy.
Evening, Happy New Year.
You
Good to
too.
be here. Let's see. So I've been continuing to catch up on more information around our grants. That seems to be going well. It's been really nice to be able to speak with other grant managers from around the state. So they have office hours that I join them on. We also got this finding of no determination of significant disproportionality, which is a good thing for us. It's what always happens in Hampton. It means we are not disciplining our students with special needs in a disproportionate manner. Let's see. You have the numbers as always, and if you see them, you will see that we are at the peak of our referrals right now with 15 referrals last month. That is a lot of students in referral. So we just continue to test. We just continue to do the best for our Hampton students. And that's all I got.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Silva Napton? Frank?
Hey, I've got a question for you. Looking at your numbers for January versus December, total special ed students enrolled, you went to 175 from 169.
Yes.
Where did you pick? I know where you picked up one. You picked up one at the Marston School. Where did you pick up the remaining 5?
I see those numbers. We were looking at the preschool numbers, and last time we did the numbers, and we had friendship kids in that count. And so we had to take the friendship kids out of that count. So it made the total different. But it didn't, you can't actually see the math in there.
No, I can't. see the
It
math.
doesn't,
That's
you
why the
can't see it in
question
there
was
because
asked.
the friendship kids were included as special ed kids and they're not at one point. So we had to take them out and then we had to add them back in, and it got very complicated.
So are they
We really
counted
are.
now in the January number?
They're not in the January number.
And were they counted in the December number?
Well, no, because that would be backwards.
It should, oh, that's backwards.
It's, yeah. Let me,
The 169 should be in January and 175 should,
no, I'm going to relook at this because let me relook at it. I will get back to you.
okay.
I don't know what that's, it was something about friendship kids, and I will remember it and get back to you.
Okay.
All right?
Just curious about the numbers. that's
Right.
all.
No, I understand. I see exactly what you're saying. I will figure that out.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, for the social worker, the only thing that I can see is that the social worker has a new last name. So we'll have to remind Kathy Tuck to change that on the agenda.
Yeah. So congratulations to Emily on her wedding in November?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep,
Congratulations,
Veterans Day week.
Emily.
Yep, it was.
Does anybody have any questions about the social worker report? Okay. Amber, there you are. Technology?
Hello. So we've had a few updates. we're slowly getting our Promethean boards in. They don't really have an ETA, they're just sending them when we get them. Or when they receive them, but we did get our access points. So those are our Wi-Fi access points, and we've replaced 16 for center school that were outdated. So those already went in over Christmas vacation. They're up and running, and 2 came here to replace 2 older ones. We also are working on updating our servers. We got 3 new servers, 1 for each school. So everything is being updated on that front. And then we did put together a Donors Choose project with Mr. Carlson at Marston School, and we did receive 5 iPads for them to use in the music room to create and compose music. So we're just waiting on those to arrive from Apple, but Mr. Carlson and I are really excited to get those out to the students so they can start creating and making some more music and plays and things like that once they're in the kids' hands. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Amber? Frank?
Yeah, this is just to bring us up to speed. I do know that you're receiving money from the cable franchise.
Yep.
And you've already have projects assigned. Do you have a timetable on when those projects will be completed?
So we're waiting on all of our goods right now. So we've ordered everything. We're just waiting on them to come in. And with the shipping and everything, it's been a little bit of delayed. But we are getting everything. Everything's been ordered. We're working with all the companies so that when we do get them, trainings going to be offered to staff, not only just our staff, but the music teachers and from the other 2 schools as well, so they can use and learn everything for the auditorium, so they can do their performances and learn how to use all the sound systems and the light systems. We did get cable. If you guys look behind you, we're on TV, so we can actually see what we're broadcasting out right now, which is a really nice thing that we haven't had in a few years since the renovation project. So that's been a big help. So we are using those monies, and we are getting everything organized, and as soon as we get it in, we've got people lined up to install everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Amber? Thank you, and I know we're short-handed tonight, so thank you for getting that organized. Mr. Lassard, anything for us tonight particularly? Everything's good? All right, then let me do it this way. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lassard? Okay, Happy New Year. I'll do the same thing with you, Mrs. Borg. Everything's good? Anybody have any questions for her?
Can I try that? No?
Okay, Superintendent's report. Dr. Costa.
All right. So if we could turn to page 2, we have a request for donations from Ms. Principal Lannon for $988.82 from Geskis.
So moved. Second? Second, Wendy. Any discussion? No, other than appreciation. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Got another one?
Yes, I do. And for Hampton Academy, also from Geskis Studios and Yearbook Publishing, $899.
Wendy, moved. Frank, second. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
just a few little highlights on my report, and just that obviously report cards went out in December. We had parent conferences, if you recall, earlier in November, and right now we are in the process of working on mid-year reports. We do have some data to share with you, some baseline data that we're excited to share with you. Just to let you know that back in December, we had a Super Eben Day, which was just a wonderful day in our community, and celebrating one of our Central School second grade students, and it was great to be able to do that. We have been in contact with SAU 21 with regard to the new COVID-19 DHHS CDC guidelines. We have some information that I'll share later on in my report. And obviously, we're excited to be with the Budget Committee on Thursday night here at Hampton Academy to continue those conversations. As you already know, Mike Anderson continues to work with our 3 schools, as was highlighted in the principal's report. We did put a plea out to our families to kindly to complete the applications that go with our lunch program. That was in my Friday's newsletter. I just want to put a plea out there for that Title I funds, which provide support to our K-5 students in reading and math and writing, is contingent upon those forms being completed. Central School is in jeopardy right now of potentially losing that support, as our numbers are not substantiating the support services. And I understand that many parents and families out there right now are appreciating our free lunch program this year, but keep in mind that if you could kindly fill out those applications, as Title I federal funding is contingent upon those numbers. And they are doing another data collection at the DOE later later in the school year. So please, 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 I kindly ask that you fill those out, and you can do those either electronically, or there was a PDF and a paper copy. So I just want to put a plug in for that as well. Tomorrow, we're excited to be working with Karen Matsos from Demonstrated Success as we continue to dive into our language arts curriculum. Our reading specialists, along with building administration, will be looking at that and just ensuring that our curriculum continues to be rigorous and it continues to address the needs of our schools, students, and staff. Moving on a little bit, just that, as we know, and families have been very kind and patient, as we know that CDC guidelines did change over the winter break and DHHS did adopt those guidelines. We are now working with SAU 21 and school nurses to determine what our school would like to do. And we know and we anticipate that there will be a letter that will go out tomorrow that is in support of these new guidelines. And just if I could just reiterate a couple of things with those guidelines while I have you all kind of hopefully listening. The first thing is that it's really imperative that we follow the guidelines to the letter. The big change in the guidelines is students, staff, and anyone who is a positive COVID test only needs to quarantine and isolate for 5 days, provided that, here's the caveats, please make sure you listen, provided that you are fever-free for 24 hours, provided that your symptoms are improving. Those are the big things. Additionally, provided that you can wear a properly fitted mask for an additional 5 days. So those are the 3 critical pieces to these new procedures. So I just want to stress those because I know that our nurses have been inundated with many calls and questions, and it was really important for us to get the guidelines directly from the Department of Health and Human Services, and only then could we develop our own protocols and our own procedures for addressing that. So I just wanted to be clear about that. We know right now that the Omicron is a very contagious virus. We know that the numbers that are posted on the state website are no longer accurate because many people are now doing at-home tests. So we just have to be mindful of that the numbers could actually be higher than what they show on those websites because many of them are not being reported. I want to let you know that our principals and our staffs have been able to offer remote the week prior to vacation, and this week it will end on this Friday. It will end on this Friday beginning next Tuesday. Monday is a holiday. Beginning Tuesday, everyone will be expected to be back in class. So just a reminder about that. We have also updated our return to school plan on the Department of Education as we are required to do so, and that I just want to thank everyone, the community, the board, and obviously our families, our staff, our school nurses, facilities, food service, for their work on behalf of all of the changes and all of what we're having to work through this year with regard to COVID-19. We all had hoped that this was going to be the year 2021, 2022, that things were going to change and things were going to turn around. Unfortunately, as we know, we have had some challenges, but I have to say that we as a community and as a group have done a tremendous job collaborating, coming together, and doing what is in the best interest of our community. So just a big thank you to everyone. And that's all I have. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them. Yes, Frank?
Questions, Frank?
Thank you. Can you just elaborate on proper masks? In other words, I do know that the CDC said cloth masks are not that good in preventing COVID-19 from transmitting. So, and they're looking at N95s, KN95s. So can you just elaborate that for the audience?
Yeah, I certainly can. You know, what they really want to make sure is that you have at least a 2-ply mask. So for our students, for the most part, a mask like this, so long as it is properly fitted, meaning that it is fitted close up here and close down here. That is what is most important. We're working with children, and children are children. And I'll be completely honest. I was at Center School today. I had a wonderful visit with Principal Lannon and his staff and his students. And do we need to remind the students? We do at times. These are children. They need reminders. They need redirecting. They need reinforcement. But I'm going to be honest with you. 95% of our students doing a great job with this. They really are. For people that are concerned that work in a high-risk occupation, like if you work in a hospital or you work in a nurse's office, you may want to wear an N95, which we know offers a little more protection. But for most of our students, a mask like this, a mask that you're wearing, Mrs. Shepherd, Mrs. Bridle, Mr. Shepherd, all of you are wearing, it's fine. It is fine. So thanks for pointing that out. One of the things I guess I would like to reiterate is I did have an opportunity to speak with Stacy Morse from First Student. One of the things I am hearing is they are very challenged, as we know, to find drivers. And then because they are also dealing with staff out sick, they're struggling with the runs. They're also finding that students are getting on the bus without masks. This is a CDC DHS guidelines that has been in place since we came back to school in August. Families, please support us. Please do your part. The First Student is replacing hundreds of masks daily. If you can kindly send your child to school with a mask, we greatly would appreciate it. We do know extenuating circumstances do exist, and we will do our best to help out those families, but it really is one more thing we're asking of First Students, and they are already, they are strapped with obviously having people doing double runs. It slows everything down, and we really don't want children waiting in the cold any longer than they have to. I mean, we're trying to get through these routes. So when kids arrive at the bus stop and get on without a mask, it slows everything down. They have to figure out, do they have a mask? Do they get a mask? Please, we're asking for your cooperation and support with regard to this. Thank you for your question.
Okay, and my second part of that is, if a child has no mask, all right, are we able to provide them with a mask, and are they available? Because I do know there's difficulties in obtaining them in the general market.
Yep.
Now, there's weeks
Yep.
you have to wait if
Yep.
you're ordering masks.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Frank DeLuca, for asking it. Absolutely. We have been able to receive a number of cloth masks from the Department of Education that works with DHHS. In addition, our facilities manager, along with our finance director, has secured hundreds of masks that, that Mrs. Shepherd and Mrs. Bridle are wearing. So absolutely, we do have those masks as well. So we can always provide our students, staff, or anyone that does need a mask. We are happy to do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
I have 2 questions.
Well, first of all, Ginny, I saw your hand first, and then Andrea.
The other thing parents can do is if the bus comes at 8:10, make sure you're there at 8:10. The buses right now can't wait for you. So if you're not early or right there when the bus comes, you're going to have to take your child to school.
Andrea?
I have two questions. The first one is, do you have the overall numbers since we returned back from vacation? Do you have the overall numbers of staff and students that have been out in the Hampton schools due to COVID?
I do. Those are updated daily on our website. I think today was actually a pretty good day, but we have roughly about 100 students in total from last week and now up to Tuesday of this week.
And how about staff?
I'm talking combined. And if I had to break it down, I mean, I'm not looking at my numbers. I do track it, as you know, daily. But if I had to break it down, I would guess that we have a total of, since we've returned to school, roughly maybe 30 staff, 70 students. That's my best guess.
Okay.
I mean, I can give you the hard numbers. I have
No,
it.
I just want the public to understand that what we're dealing with here. And second, do you have enough do the nurses have enough test equipment for, COVID tests?
Yeah, that is a great question. Unfortunately, they do not. We were supplied with 100 tests from the Department of Education, and they've been very judicious with how they use those tests. Those are the rapid tests that they have, and so they have about 100 tests. In order for a school district to administer COVID tests, they need to be what's called CLIA certified. It is a certification that does extend beyond their current certification. Our nurses are not CLIA certified. That is something that we are talking about as we speak. In fact, I did meet with the nurses virtually yesterday and today. We did discuss this, and if you are CLIA certified, you have access to more rapid tests, but you must be CLIA certified in order to obtain those tests. Great question.
Wendy?
Okay, one clarification. We talked about the changes to quarantining at home before they come back. Their fever has to be gone 24 hours, no Tylenol, no ibuprofen, symptoms improving. What about tests? Do they need to have had a PCR or an at-home test negative before they come back?
That's a great question. We talked a lot about that, and I know that this was a point of conversation that we had. We would have loved to have required a rapid test. We would not have required a PCR test because in a PCR test, symptoms can linger long after you're feeling better. But a rapid test will pick up any of the virus, and they'll be able to tell if it's active or not. So the rapid is really the best one. Our issue was if we were going to require it and then we didn't have them, it could have been problematic for families. So that's why we did not require it, and it's a good question to ask. So appreciate it.
Any other questions for Dr. Costa? Okay.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Center School Nonfiction Film Festival. Hello again.
Thank you. We're excited to have Center School be a celebration for the month of January. I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, when Jamie and I select an area to highlight, it's just a snippet of what's going on, of all the fabulous things going on at Center School. A big shout out to all the staff for the fabulous things that they are doing. I wish I could really highlight all of them, and possibly if I stay around long enough in my career, I'll have a chance to do that. But tonight, I'm going to focus on grade 2 and a nice tradition that we have in the winter time, especially in December, leading into the Christmas break. We take a little bit of break from the traditional Readers and Writers Workshop. And during this month, students in grade 2 participate in what's called a nonfiction film festival. More specifically, students are given a nonfiction topic or a guiding question to research. And during reading and writing workshops, students were taught to ask and write questions, read and research from multiple sources, take notes, and create a written script. It's truly project-based learning. The second graders worked with partners to deepen their understanding of their topic by building on each other's ideas, asking and answering questions, and collaborating. I'm going to show you a little bit of one of the classes. I'm not going to run the whole festival for you. The festival will be up and running. I've talked to Amber on the Channel 13 for those teachers that did participate in that, so everybody will have a chance to see all of the students. But for tonight, for your viewing purposes, I want to give you a little glimpse, a little preview of what was going on, what I'll highlight. So with that being said, Amber?
And I'm Finley. We're here to tell you all about polar bears. The Arctic is
They can hear it on Channel 13. It's a little light here.
It is also a bed of ice that is treated. It's called the tundra. A full-grown male polar bear can grow up to 10 feet tall, and it can weigh 1,400 pounds. A female polar bear can grow up to 7 feet tall, and a full-grown female polar bear can weigh 650 pounds. The black skin under the polar bear's fur attracts sun, and the white fur on polar bears keeps the cold out. The claws on the polar bear help it grip on slippery ice. Polar bears' favorite food is seals, but if seals are not around, they eat harp seals. If polar bears aren't that hungry, they get a fish. If they're in a bigger mood, they get a salmon. Polar bears live in a den under an ice cave with their family. The male is usually out of the den while the mother watches the babies. Polar bears spend summer in shade, and when they're in the shade, they get more energy. By using their black skin under their fur, they adapt to winter by attracting sunlight. I hope you had a good time learning all about polar bears. Bye. See you next time. Polar bears live on the tundra. They love to slundra. They look for food and don't get in a mood. They love to eat. They have big feet. Bye-bye.
We'll see one more, and then I'll give some comments.
Hi, I'm Lilia. And I'm Stella. The Arctic is a crisp, cold tundra land. The Arctic is made of ice and snow. We're going to teach you all about harp seals. Harp seals are some of the world's cutest seals as babies. Harp seals are named from the shape on their back that looks like a harp. Harp seals don't chew their food, they swallow it. Blubber helps harp seals survive in the freezing cold water. Blubber is smooth, thin skin. Flippers also help harp seals to survive in the water. To escape from predators. Harp seals eat a lot of different foods like krill, meat, and redfish. Harp seals also eat squid, shrimp, and salmon. Harp seal babies, also known as pups, are born on ice floes. Ice floes are big chunks of ice. In summer, harp seals live in the Arctic. In winter, they migrate someplace warm. Migrate means going to a warmer place when it gets cold outside. That's all for now. See you later. Bye.
So one of the blessings, if I were to say the word blessings, of this pandemic over the past 2+ years is, number one, technology. The increase in the use of technology in all the grades, especially at the primary level. When we went to that one-to-one initiative, it filled Center School up with Chromebooks for each student to use, and we really dove deep into Google, and especially Google Slides, as these pictures here were chosen using Google Slides. They got to pick their own images and create the images. They recorded using Screencastify, which is unbelievable and not thought of 10 years ago, that now that they can do this in a second grade classroom. They were compiled by the teacher from Screencastify into WeVideo so that we could present it, and it does present very clear in other places. I apologize. And in the past we've used green screen, and we've used something called Do Ink app with the iPads, which is a drawing app on the iPad. So I'm just really blessed at your support with technology, and I wanted to highlight how we can blend technology into the curriculum. And the students had a great opportunity to do this. Normally they do this in front of the parents. We bring them into the cafeteria or the auditorium, the library, and we have a true film festival. We roll out a red carpet. I have a red carpet at school that we use for this event. Back in the days, we used to do that. So we're looking forward to doing that again, but we had to do it virtually this time, and all the parents got to see this. So just a great little snippet of what's going on at Center School. Any questions?
No, but I wanted to give a little quick shout out to Mrs. Millette with her virtual concert.
Yep, again,
I know
another virtual event that
Reno,
we had to do.
I believe, did that at Hampton Academy.
Correct.
So those were really nice concerts.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. And then I believe we have some discussion on the SAS results.
Yes, so obviously we know that this has been a very unusual circumstance since March of 2013. However, with that being said, we know that it's important for us to continue to focus on learning. So I'm going to ask if Mrs. Levine could kindly put up the PowerPoint presentation, and then, of course, and I'm going to do the introduction, and then you'll hear from each of the three principals. Thank you. So believe it or not, the last time students had a normal school experience was in 2019, 2020, which seems so hard to believe that, and here we are in 2022. So March 13th, 2020 was the last time students were here, and it was prior to the pandemic. And then what happened, we know that spring is the governor declared a state of emergency, which put us into remote learning. And as a result, there was no New Hampshire SAS that year, so we did not have any standardized assessment. We know that last year was a very unusual year, as it was the first year in a pandemic that our students came back, but they came back in a hybrid model, which meant that there was a reduced time in instruction. We know that there was more of a focus on making sure our students and families were okay, making sure families and students were safe. And so the year felt very different. And here we are in 2021, 2022, and things are trying to get back on track. What you may not have known was last spring, the New Hampshire Department of Education did decide to implement what we call an interim benchmark assessment. And why they did that was because they wanted to get a thumbnail of how kids were doing. And you can imagine that, and that's what we're going to share with you tonight, and you can imagine it's not what we all had hoped for. In fact, we know that there is learning loss, but we also know the value of students being in school full time and what we can do when the students are here. We also know that back in 2019, when we did take the assessments, Marsden and Hampton Academy performed in the top 15. So we know that when students have access to education 5 days a week, full time, we see the results. And I think that's a credit to the district. I think it's a credit to the teachers. I think it's a credit to the staff. I think it's a credit to the board and the system. But there is no doubt that you're going to see some things tonight that you may be surprised. In fact, it was a little surprising to all of us as well. But for all of us, it's what we call our starting point. And we take that starting point very seriously because we know that it helps to inform the steps we take to close those learning gaps so that we can proactively plan. So the next slide, Mrs. Levine. So we know just some language for you so that you understand some of the terminology. The New Hampshire SAS is the assessment that the New Hampshire Department of Education oversees to ensure that our students are progressing along their growth curve. It's also used to look at patterns and trends and to really look at how are we teaching the curriculum. It's really a measure of how well we are delivering the curriculum. So in addition to looking at student scores, we're also really judging how well we are teaching. We know that we also implement what's called the STAR assessments, which is put out by Renaissance. And these are, as it says, these shorter, content-specific assessments that are designed to progress monitor our students so that we can dipstick along the way to see if students are making the growth that we would anticipate. Those tests are giving grades 2 through 8. They're given in the fall, and in the spring, and in the winter. We like to see where they start in the fall and where they land in the spring, and then we do the winters, which we talked about this month, to see if students are making the expected progress that we would hope to see. In addition, Mr. Lannon at Center School is also using iReady, which is an online program for reading or math that really helps the teachers to inform their instruction. It identifies students' needs, gaps, and where teachers need to focus their learning. Dibbles is also an indicator of early literacy skills that we use to measure to see if our pre-K grade 2 students are acquiring those literacy skills that are so needed in order to become fluent readers that are able to understand and comprehend. So what I'm going to do is to advance to the next slide and have Principal Lannon come up and talk a little bit about how his students are doing with overall proficiency in the areas of math and language arts.
Good evening. Just a couple of things before I get started about the presentation between myself and the other two principals. At Center School, as Lois pointed out, we do not participate in the SAS. That measures grades 3 through 8. However, we at Center School have to build a strong foundational set of skills so students are prepared to take that test in 3rd grade. So what we do is we have multiple measures, some of them a little bit longer, and some of them, as we talked about a little bit later, the Dibbles that are quite short and only a minute long. Those are great indicators that we have in place to make sure students are making adequate progress. So looking at the graph right now, I want the top one is our iReady scores in June of last year. Tonight, Dave and Nathan will be talking about the SAS scores in the spring of last year. So I pulled out some scores about where we were in our smaller short test, because that's in the primary level, we're not capable to take the extended long test. So looking at our scores overall in a COVID year, right, in a hybrid model, in a shortened day of the year, I think we did quite well as far as percentages of students that were meeting or above the benchmark at the end of the school year. Now, this is only one indicator that we have. Tests of iReady versus STAR and SAS cannot really be compared. It's just a measure that we have. These are indicators of how students in general were doing at the end of last year. Now, even though we had a COVID year and we were in a hybrid model and we had things going on, there are going to be some gaps that you're going to see on the next slide when I get there in a minute that we needed to celebrate in the fall, this fall, because now we know how to attack those skills for the students that had. These were some general things that we noticed that they were doing. Now, in the bottom, all three of us did a baseline STAR test. The language arts was higher than the math, which is expected. The math was a little bit more complicated online as well. And I want you to know that we gave those tests in the first month of school as well. So there was probably some gaps in learning as well. But again, we use those measures as a way to build curriculum and build goals, cycle goals in our PLCs. Okay, the next slide talks about our ELA proficiency in Dibbles. And don't panic at these scores. I want to talk about the scores a little bit. These are scores that we're excited about. Now, Dibbles is administered by classroom teachers one-to-one with each student. Typically takes less than 5 minutes to complete per student. And what it does is it measures those things that you see at the bottom of the screen. Those are terms that are very, very well versed at the primary level for our teachers. The best part about this, Dibbles, is the teachers get a one-on-one interview with the students to get a chance. We gave this test within the first 7 days of school. We were dying to get to these kids, get some data on these kids, and then build growth. In a Dibbles program, you see by mid-year and by the end of the year, tremendous growth. We use these scores as well to build our Title I and Target Assist. Key there is grade 1 scores, and I want to highlight the kindergarten a little bit. The kindergarten, if you remember, last year was 73 students. This year it's 88 students. So we have roughly over 15 students that are brand new to us that we didn't have any testing on as well. Didn't know anything about them. They came in. We're seeing tremendous growth already in our Dibbles scores. We're going to benchmark. I think at the end of January is when we're going to do our benchmarking, and we're going to be excited about that. We switched to Dibbles just this year, this 8th edition. So this is the first time that we've administered this as well. So there is a little bit of a learning curve that we need to do. Molly, the reading specialist, has done a tremendous job giving us professional development the first 3 days of school, giving the teachers enough opportunities to practice. They did a lot of the testing with the teachers, Molly and Martha, Donna, my reading target assist teacher, my reading super reading team, so to make sure that they're comfortable. But getting back to why we're doing the Dibbles real specifically is, you're familiar that New Hampshire passed a dyslexia law, and all students need to be screened for dyslexia. The Dibbles is a approved test by the state of New Hampshire to give us adequate information, on-the-spot information, to make sure that we have indicators for dyslexia and what we need to do about that. And so we are fulfilling all of the law as far as dyslexia screening as well. So a little bit later on in the presentation, we'll have a little bit of what we're doing with this data and how we're implementing it and what our grouping's looking like. But I want to turn it over to my next colleague to talk about his scores, and then eventually I'll cycle back up again because that's the way the night's going. I'm up here a lot tonight, so.
Hello. Okay. So as can we keep that up there? Thanks. So as Dr. Costa stated, the New Hampshire statewide assessment system, it used to be SBAC. Before that, it was NECAP. Just some of the acronyms you might have heard. It's administered in grades 3 through 8. It's administered in English language arts and math, and then in grades 5 and 8, students also participate in a science portion of the assessment. We're going to stick to primarily talking about ELA and math today. So looking at our scores, they're not exactly what we're used to at Marston, I'll be honest with you. Our students that perform on these assessments usually do typically much better than this, but I think, again, it speaks to the fact that we typically have 5 days of high quality instruction for our students, and over the last couple of years that has been not happening, whether it's been because of hybrid or remote learning or a number of factors. So when we look at these things, though, it's one data point in we kind of triangulate data. We use 3 different data points in New Hampshire SAS STAR, and then some curriculum-based measures and some assessments that we use in reading and math. And with these, we're able to look not only at how students are performing, so who's doing well, who might need support, but you can really dive down into every student's individual test scores and see their individual strengths and areas that they might need support. So for us, in terms of planning instruction, interventions, or even enrichment opportunities, this is a really telling assessment and data point for us. It also helps teachers review their curriculum. As Dr. Costa was saying, it tests the curriculum. It's what have we taught and how well are we teaching it. So when you look at some of these things, and let's say our students are weak in numbers and operation, it just tells our teachers that we need to go back and refine our units and our lessons of instruction. Everything we're doing and everything that's being assessed is to align to the same standards, the Common Core. But it's just sometimes we need to teach it a little better. Sometimes we need to change our scope and sequence because the test happened to be really heavy on geometry, and geometry was one of those things we didn't get to that year. Especially last year and the year before, because we didn't get to teach everything we normally teach. When you condense or reduce your schedule, you can't hit every standard. So it's really pulling those major standards out, and then some of the more auxiliary ones or supportive standards are not always touched on. As we typically do, we perform better than the state. It's not a huge comparison I look at. I'd rather look at how do we perform against ourselves year to year. What you're looking at is last spring, so those would be our current 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Those are, when you see the star data after, those truly are our current 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, but you know, the grade 5 in this is actually Mr. O'Connor's 6th grade. As a school, we did fairly well in comparison, but again, lots of room for improvement. The nice thing is it's baseline data. It's a starting point. And I'm very confident, given the talented instructional and support staff we have at our school, that we will see far greater numbers coming up in this spring. Again, we're focused on academics this year, but we're also really focused on social emotional learning and helping kids be ready for school. When we sat them down for this test last year, keep in mind, this is over several days and several sessions in both content areas. So it's a lot more intensive than, say, the Dibbles or even our STAR assessment. But again, it gives us a lot of useful information, and we'll talk later in our presentation about how we're using that as a school. So we can go to the STAR slide. Oh, and just one thing last, you don't have to go back, but on the last thing, when we're talking about students who are proficient, there are 4 scoring categories, 1, 2, 3, 4. Students who are proficient are considered a level 3 or higher. So when we're looking at those are the number or percentage of our students who scored a 3 or above on that assessment. Again, our STAR, we administer this 3 times a year, as Dr. Costa said. The nice thing is we have an endless amount of licenses, so really we could progress monitor or give it to students as often as we want. We do have some students who take it every 4 to 6 weeks because we're trying to collect data and plan supports for them. It's, again, one of those data points that we use. It's a brief 30 to 40 minute assessment, you know, 1 for math, 1 for ELA, that's split up over 2 days. Scores lower than we're used to seeing. We're actually participating this week and next in our fall STAR assessment, and then later on this month and into early February, our RTI core team will start to take a look at this and looking at just some preliminary things that we've seen very surface level. We're already making gains in the right direction. So while we look at these overall achievement scores, we look a lot at student growth. So where do they start and where do they end? Because not every kid is going to be 100% proficient as much as we'd like them to be. But it's where did they start from and have they shown us some growth. So those are the percentage of our students, again, that scored over a certain percentile. This is a nationally normed assessment, so when they look at our scores and they put them into percentile ranks and student growth, they're looking at it from across the country of students who take this particular assessment. And as we said, it's given in grades 2 through 8, and the nice thing for us is consistency. So as Mr. Lannon's doing in 2nd grade and we receive those students, we'll be able to use this data, you know, day 1 to start planning, you know, support and interventions or enrichment activities for students. So, you know, I'm optimistic, as I always am and tend to be, that we have to start somewhere, and the only place to go up here is up. And, you know, I know that with the quality that we have in our schools in terms of our teaching staff and our instructional aides and interventionists, that we absolutely will see growth and gains like we usually do on this. And I will turn it over to Mr. O'Connor.
Hi, good evening. So we use the same benchmarks. I want to bring you back to last May and last June. We came back from hybrid right after February vacation. You know, and we always told parents that there's no substitute for direct instruction, and that's absolutely the case here. You think about a school year is 180 days. If you take a look at 20 and 21, we cut that in half. So if I'm a teacher, I have a scope and sequence. I have units. I have projects and assessments that I do over a course of 180 days. We had to squeeze that into roughly half that amount of time. Again, no excuses here because I see a tale of two cities as you look at this. We take a look at our math scores. Again, those are not what we're used to seeing at Hampton Academy, particularly from our 8th graders. But I can also paint that picture for you. We gave that math test the first week of June last year, where it was 85 degrees out. We gave the language arts test 2 weeks before that. And so you can see there was quite a difference there. Can you go back? Oh, I can't see that. Thank you, Amber. So, again, pretty proud and pretty impressed with our ELA scores. That's actually really not bad for what we were dealing with. Again, each content either lends itself or makes challenges for the situation we were in. And I think that when we talk about ELA, it's a lot of independent work. You're working, you're reading, you're writing, you're drafting. When you talk about math, that's really focusing and concentrating, and you do work in groups. We don't have access to that. So again, that is our baseline, and we can only go up from there. Again, I don't say anything about what we did because I think we all did the best we could do. I'm proud of the staff here and what they did and what they accomplished. We can go to the next one, please. So the STAR is the assessment we've used for nearly 10 years. So we have some longitudinal data here. It is given, as Dr. Costa said, we give it 3 times a year. We give it once in the very first week of school. So you can see that those results were from the first week of September, kids just coming back after summer vacation. But again, it gives us a baseline because we are doing our second STAR assessment this week. We call it our Winter STAR. In between the fall and the winter, we also can use STAR. It's a great tool. It also has a screening tool with it, which is a much shorter assessment. Each one of these assessments takes about 45 to 50 minutes in a classroom, and it is pretty comprehensive. Now, you're looking at, as we said, the proficiency. So those are the students, percentage-wise, that are at or at the benchmark or above the benchmark. And again, for the first week of September, we were pleasantly surprised. And again, 8th grade seems to, again, those are students now that this 8th grade is now at the high school. Those were last year's 8th grade students. From the standpoint of an 8th grade student, and I spent Mrs. Hughes and I spent our time with our 8th graders, they were, I think as a group overall, they were fairly disillusioned. They had their field trips taken away. They had their athletics taken away. This was a group of kids that, when you get to 8th grade, that is your year to shine, and they didn't really get a chance to do that. But I make no excuses. I think that the way we did that assessment, we couldn't give it online. We had to have kids come in, and if you remember, we had several students still remote last year. Mrs. Hughes and the staff proctored the exam right here in our dining hall. We're going to go to the next slide because we want to talk about, obviously when we talk about school, we talk about curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So we've just shown you the assessment, but the real important part is our curriculum and our instruction. So we're very fortunate at Hampton Academy in that we have a daily block every day. It's called an Rti block. We don't use the word RTI because that's an educational word. It stands for response to instruction. But we call it Shark Block, and other schools call it What We Need. But it is an opportunity to provide direct instruction in those areas that students need most help in. So it's a tiered program. We are Tier 1. Most kids are Tier 1. That means they're on grade level or at grade level. Tier 2 are below grade level, and that is a different type of intervention. It's a little bit more structured. And then Tier 3 is really a targeted intervention that works getting either those gaps closed or those learning areas bolstered up so we can move on. This week, we have a data team here at Hampton Academy, and all 3 schools do. So on Friday, we'll be looking at those winter stars, which we're taking this week, and we're doing makeups. But we'll be taking a look at those results so we can regroup the students. We regroup students 4 times a year to get them into their Shark blocks. And it's everything, as I said, from enrichment to a very intense kind of remediation, so we can get kids back to where they need to be. I think my colleague is going to come up because they want to tell you about what they do at their school for that. But as you can see, we talk about scope and sequence. And if you're a teacher, and I have one sitting right here, and two sitting right here, they set that scope and sequence for the entire year. And as you know, 2021 didn't go the way we wanted to go. So we focused on foundational skills. We really wanted to make sure that students had what they need so they could move on. But as you get into 7th and 8th grade, even in a normal school year, you're trying to hit all those competencies. And typically, you know, we're teaching, and if I'll use math for an example, we're teaching geometry and statistics right before the test. Well, that didn't happen last year, so we never got to our geometry and statistics. But the state assesses it anyways. So that's where we knew where our weaknesses were, specifically in math. And you want me to keep going, Dr. Costa?
Or if Mr.
Come on in.
Sadler or Mr. Lannon want to get up, I think that was great, and then we'll take questions, I guess, at the end.
Yeah, you know, I think it's very similar at all three schools, so not to repeat anything, you know, it's, what are we using this for? We're monitoring students' academic progress. We're using that data to plan interventions and also plan enrichment for students who might be working, you know, above the grade level. We're guiding our instruction. We're making sure it's differentiated for students. I think we're always looking for strengths and weaknesses of students and how can we build on both of those things so we can have really well-rounded you know, learners. We assess and adjust our curricular scope and sequences. As Dave said, you know, we kind of look at what we're teaching and when we're teaching it. We're making sure we're hitting those power standards. And if students are deficient in a certain area, we have to make sure that we're communicating that with the grade level that's receiving the student. So if our fourth graders were low in, let's say, geometry, we want to make sure we're setting up vertical conversations so they can talk about that with fifth grade. So when they're planning their instruction, they know it's an area they're probably going to have to bolster a little bit. Of course, planning through interventions through our RTI model. We are working, in fact, tomorrow with demonstrated success on looking at our vertical alignment in English language arts and making sure that from K to 8, we have a clear and consistent scope and sequence so that when a student travels all the way through, they're hitting all those major standards and making sure when the time they leave 8th grade and head to wherever they're going, that they're well-rounded students in terms of readers and writers and creative thinkers. So that's happening. We're using this data to also, then we used it last year to determine who might be eligible for summer programming. Aside from the extended school year program through special ed, we've done Title I programming, we've done mini boot camps. Last year we did an intensive summer programming session for you know, we invited close to 75 students from each of the three schools, and we had a little bit less of a turnout, but this helps us let us know who might need that support over the summer months. And then, of course, using federal funding to address some of this learning loss in terms of materials, supplies, programs, and, you know, we know now where we're strong and where we're weak, and now we need to fill those holes in with high quality instruction and support for students to make sure they're getting where we need them to be as learners in Hampton. So I think that's about, you know, the data we have, what we're doing with it, but we will take questions. Or Tim has anything you'd like to add?
Again, if you want to just refer to the slide, that slide that we had put up of the things that we're working on is all three schools together are doing what they're working on to make sure that students are getting some success. So a lot of what Nathan and Dave said is ongoing at Center School. Just a couple little things I want to talk about specific at Center School. A little bit different than that is, number one, we're a PLC school. What that means, we're a professional learning communities. We meet on a weekly basis, and we run a professional learning community, and we have guidelines and protocols that we use in professional learning communities. And what we do in those professional learning communities is we use the data, especially the beginning of the year data, and we set goals, and we set very specific goals. We call them SMART goals, and SMART goals are goals that are specific, they're measurable, they are attainable, they are relevant, and they're also time specific, so that there's a time at the end of it. So we set goals cycles. We use the beginning of the year data to set a year-long cycle. For example, looking at our Dibbles in certain areas, we say it's roughly around 40% of the students are at a benchmark that is a standardized benchmark in a non-COVID type of setting, by the way. But we say we're going to get to all of our students would be 75 to 78% of the students will be at benchmark by May of 2022. And then we set up action plans of how to get that. So we use the data that way in our professional learning cycle communities to make sure that students are getting what they need. We hold them accountable because we have opportunities that we come back and we share the data that we have every 5 to 9 weeks. We take a look at data. We look at dipsticking, as Lois talked about, some interim measures that we have. It also helps us set up our Title I and Target Assist groups as well. We have a year-long goal, but we also set up cycle goals to help us progress along the year, because we don't want to just focus on a year-long goal. We want to make sure that, well, we'll break it down. We'll break the goal down and say, by January 22nd is our next goal that we have a review on. We'll then spend a data dive. We'll have what's called data dive. You see that in my report sometimes. A data dive simply is like really getting hands on, looking at the data, what kids are succeeding, what kids are not responding to the intervention program that we have in place, and how can we best meet the needs of those students. So again, very general what's going on, but I wanted to get a little bit more specific. Lois asked us to get a little specific at each school, what we're doing differently. But that's something pretty typical at an elementary level that we're doing, and I know that the other schools are probably doing something similar as well. But that's that part. There's another slide next.
Yeah, I guess just to open it up to questions and comments. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time at our school board meetings talking about COVID. And we've spent a lot of time talking about setting up programs and outside usage, but we also know that schools are here because we are focused on student achievement. That is our primary goal, and we thought it would be important that as we turn the page in January 2022, it was important to remind everybody why we're here. And I know that it's not lost on any of you or our staff, but it's a reminder to the community that we are here to really educate our students and to provide high quality education. We know that we have a reputation as being an excellent school district. We know that we have received a number of recognitions, and most recently the ones that we spoke about earlier. And we just want you to know that we recognize that our students have had a really challenging few years. We know our families have had a challenging few years. We know this has impacted our students and our families, but it is certainly something we are mindful of each and every day, and it is something that our classroom teachers and support staff continue to be laser focused on. So just we are excited that we are starting here, because it's considering we know that we're going to continue to only continue to close those gaps with this intentional work. So just open it up now for your questions or comments if you have any.
Frank?
When were these tests administered?
So great question. So the interim New Hampshire SAS assessments were implemented, or they were given last spring. And Mr. Sadler, Mr. O'Connor, do you know a specific date? I want to say May.
Yeah, they give you a window of about March to June, but we push it as far as we can push it so we can get as much curriculum as possible. So it's usually in the month of May. Very rarely do we go into June except for makeup. June is June with elementary school students, so May.
Okay, so my concern is, if we look at the academy in math, they, 8th grade in particular, they were 30%. Correct? Based on your chart?
Can I comment on that? So that is actually a national problem, and let me explain why. Because reading is a little more holistic. It's very easy for us to tell children to read a book. It's very easy for children to practice literacy. Math needs to be taught in a very sequential manner. We know that math is about building blocks. It starts with kids knowing their facts, and from there they do higher levels of math. The problem is that if kids are not getting the day-to-day instruction, they are not getting the building blocks of which to build the higher order skills, particularly geometry, algebra,
and of like, right? And multi-digit computation. Math has nationally been called out, and we know a little bit more why. But that is one of the reasons, Frank, and you bring up a great point. When the children are younger, obviously, we're teaching really number sense. We're teaching children basic number sense and patterns and really facts. That's really what it is. But as the students get older, it gets into things that's much more complex. Things like fractions, decimals. I'm looking at Jen McClellan. She knows all this. And many students need that direct instruction. They need it unpacked for them. You start with, a basic, 1-digit by 1-digit multiplication, going to 2-digit multiplication, 3-digit. From there, you go into division. It's a very progressively taught subject. So when you don't have kids in every day, you do not have the time, and it becomes very challenging for kids, and most kids do need the day-to-day instruction.
But we were in a hybrid situation back then when the tests were administered, okay, and we still scored 30%. So on a hybrid, if I remember correctly, we had 2 days on, 3 days off, then it reversed to 3 days on, 2 days off. Okay, I can understand what you're saying, but I think, when these kids in 8th grade, and I'm specifying 8th grade here, moved on to Winnacunnet or wherever for high school, they were basically at a loss if they were at 30% regarding geometry, algebra.
Do you want to? I think a math teacher would like to speak to you.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is what programs do we have in place today at the academy for these students to make up those losses?
It's a great question.
Before they go to high school.
Great question.
That's a great question. I won't answer that question, but to speak specifically to that 8th grade group, they left 7th grade March.
Yep, March 13th, 2020.
March 13th, we were in our we're going remote stage. So they had the end of 7th grade at home in our sort of random remote stage. They had 8th grade in their hybrid model, which meant they were in school those 2 days or 3 days. And then they were with me, actually, on the other days. So they had their direct instruction remotely, and then their in-school instruction those 2 or 3 days, depending on the schedule. So those students did go off to the high school. The high school did have those plans in place, knowing that they were coming in like that. So they did adjust their schedule accordingly. Their geometry changed from, I want to say 2 quarters to 3, maybe it's not quarters, 2 quarters to 3. And they started their first quarter reviewing all of the algebra topics.
It was a statewide problem,
So,
right?
yeah.
And
So
they
that
all had
class
to adjust.
So specific to that class, they lost those months from March on in 7th grade, and then they had that alternating 8th grade year. So that was just specific to that class. Those deficits I don't think you see in the 7th grade or the 6th grade beyond that.
Well, I guess I would have a question. If the way they were receiving their instruction at the end of 2020 and throughout 2021 affected the 8th graders, why didn't it affect the 6th and 7th graders?
I guess because you would talk more specifically, it's pre-algebra. So when you're looking at 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade content, you are working on essentially the same skills at more complicated levels. So you're still working fractions, decimals, whole numbers, but you're working unit fractions, unit decimals, whole numbers, and then you go to more complex fractions, and then you go to positive and negative fractions. So you're essentially working on a lot of the same topics, and then you get into pre-algebra, and you've really switched it up content-wise.
I think
Andrea?
Mr. O'Connor hit something really clearly, though, especially as a middle school teacher. A lot of them shut down. They were angry. And that's why we're doing a lot with socio-emotional learning. They were mad. They missed out on some pretty significant, fun things that you get to do at the end of 7th grade and 8th grade. And when you've got a middle schooler who has shut down, it's really hard to get them engaged in learning.
I believe
Negative
that was
numbers
that
and
also the group
pre-algebra.
that was in the transition of
And
school?
again, I'm not saying that's all of it, but it's part of
No,
it. It's
and
part
I
of it.
understand that, but I'm saying if these tests and these results showed that particular issue in 8th grade, and it wasn't in 6th grade, and it wasn't in 7th grade with the numbers, okay, and we can put the chart back up if we want, all right, then we should be able to identify these people, okay, or the groups, and we should have some programs developed, especially, coming back to school in September to address these
So
issues
the high
and
school.
concerns.
And
Jen
those
is
kids
right.
have gone.
So Jen is right, the high
anymore.
school has expanded
Yes.
their pre-algebra and algebra programs from like 2 trimesters to 3 trimesters. I know because I've been up there.
Well, those kids have gone.
No, I know that, but we have kids coming up.
So present 8th
And we
grade.
should be
Present eighth
addressing
grade.
those issues.
Well,
President
that's what we were referring to.
Okay.
Frank,
Okay.
we have our daily Shark Block, which is RTI, and there's also the AAA program after school. We talked about our summer program. Unfortunately, we didn't know that that was an issue with 8th grade until after they left because the results didn't get to us until they were already at the high school. I do get the high school. I do get high school grades. Share them with the math folks and the language arts folks to see how their kids are doing. To make sure they've been placed correctly. Always in contact with Mr. McGowan. So I looked at those. I looked at the first trimester grades. Our kids really didn't do that badly, but again, it was when Jen's talking about core math in grades 6th and 7th, 8th grade is pre-algebra. So it's a lot. It's not concrete anymore. We're looking at we're looking at variables. We're looking at equations. We're looking at graphing. Those are all skills that you need time to develop, and they didn't have that chance necessarily in their 8th grade year because in reality they received half their instruction. Although
I understand
in
that for
person
that
they
particular
did have their
class.
hybrid days, but there's no substitute for being in
But
person.
I understand that for that particular class that moved on. But you still have issues with the 6th grade going into the 7th, the 7th going into the 8th. And those issues exist. So what I'm asking is, do we have programs in place
Yes,
to
Frank.
address that issue? And I do know you lost a math interventionist, correct?
Yes, she's right there.
Oh,
No,
okay.
they lost a math teacher.
We lost the math teacher.
So,
Correct.
well, I guess the math department at the academy, are they putting programs together to address all this?
Yeah, we actually had part of our presentation was to talk about ESSA, the ESSA money, where we get money for learning loss, and the staff is getting together right now, and we're looking at resources, materials, hardware, software, things to make up for that learning loss, Frank.
But we're looking for it now.
Well, they're doing it. They're doing it right now in the classroom, Frank. They are.
But you should already be ahead of the game because we've had in-class instruction for the whole year.
Agreed,
Correct.
Yeah.
agreed.
I mean, that'll be the biggest.
And I hope that was the way we presented this. This is a baseline, Frank. So, boom, this is where we are. That's not where we want to be,
No, I know
okay?
that.
But again,
the Titanic
based
is-
on the variables that were presented to us on the 2021 school year, that's where we are. But we are working hard this year. Again, now we have daily instruction, okay? Kids aren't having math every other day in person. That's really hard to do. And keep your mind focused on math. And kids suffered from that, particularly our 8th graders did.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Wendy?
No, I'm okay.
Ginny?
I look forward to seeing January's results, or you said January? When is the next test?
That'll be in the spring. The
It
state
won't be
state
until
assessment,
the spring,
that'll be in May.
because 30 is not acceptable at all. And I'm sorry for the teachers, I'm sorry for the students, but it's the students that lost out. And I'm sorry for their disappointments. Unfortunately, in life, there are many disappointments, and you have to move on and deal with it. And I'm sorry, but that's the way life is sometimes. So 70% of the 8th grade class, we failed. We failed in math. Not our fault, maybe, not their fault, but somebody failed them. So we have to make sure that that doesn't happen again, that we're not sitting here in the spring saying, oh, well, we got 35%, and, you know, we did improve 5%, but, you know, we've got to figure out what's going on, how we can support the teachers better, how we can support the students better. And that's where our focus has to be, I think, at this point. Because I really wasn't impressed with center school scores either. From kindergarten, which came from preschools, on to second graders. So, you know, I think we need to work, we've got work to do, and I think maybe the focus of this board at some of the time has to be, how are we improving this? How are we going to make these scores change? How are we going to better education for teachers and for students?
Well, the first step is acknowledgement,
Right.
and to know who you are. And I think that, you know, we know that, but we also know that we're not alone. We know that this is a problem not unique to Hampton. I think what Hampton is doing right now is we are not only embracing the problem, but we are now saying, what more can we do? To your point, we absolutely are ecstatic to be in school right now full-time, 5 days a week. That is the first step. We also are progress monitoring daily. I know this team. I know that these teachers take their work very seriously. They are assessing kids. There's two types of assessments. There's summative assessments and there's formative assessments. The summative assessments are the New Hampshire benchmark assessments. The STAR assessments might be considered that. The formative assessments are the assessments our teachers do daily to understand whether children are grasping new knowledge or not. They are doing this all the time. The great thing about being in school 5 days a week is that if a child is not understanding, they can address it on that day. There's the difference. We know our teachers are capable of doing that and doing it well. Unfortunately, the world has been unkind for everybody from March 2019 on. They're doing a phenomenal job in spite of the absences that are existing. I think we all know hundreds of students that are out right now for different reasons. They're doing it in spite of the staff that is absent. They cover for each other like I've never seen. We continue to be open in spite of all the absences we have, the shortage of substitute teachers. They jump in. I see principals covering classrooms. I see everyone taking their turn at what needs to be done. I couldn't agree with you more. There's work to be done, but we are doing the work every day. We will continue to do the work every day. Now, one of the things that you should know is winter assessments are being done now in STAR. Another way to look at it. I can guarantee you that these principals will be looking at that to see at not just the scores, but at these students and who is not making their growth that they should be making and coming up with a plan to address it. I have no doubt in my mind that they will be doing that. So it doesn't wait. It happens every day. That's what educators do. They will take the information, they will make a change tomorrow, they will make a change on the spot. And please, Mrs. Murphy, Mrs. McClellan, you know, you're here, 5th grade teacher, 8th grade teacher here. If I got it wrong, let me know. But I'm around and I know what I see.
When a child is out.
Hold on,
COVID,
Frank. Andrew, did you have a question? Frank?
When a child is out for 5 days, 10 days on COVID.
Yep.
Do they have homework in those critical areas like English and math? Or no? Yes or no?
Mrs. Murphy, would you like to, or Mrs. McClellan, would you like to address that? because I know what I want to say, but I think it's always good to hear from somebody, right, who is dealing with it.
Sorry to call on you. Is that all right? Okay. You look like you want to say something.
I always want to say something, right? On a regular basis, we have a revolving door of kids coming and going. Kids are out for whatever reason.
But do they get homework? That's the bottom line.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, yes, we're sending work home with them. I mean, just today, I had 2 kids that I had to get work together for during my prep time, so it takes away from that. And I'm scrambling to get things that they can do at home. I'm scrambling to post things on Google Classroom. Now, there are some things that you can't send home because it has to be teacher directed. I mean, I'm in the middle of teaching how to subtract mixed numbers, and that's not something that I could just send home with a kid. That'll be something that small class sizes, which we are gifted with this year, gives me the ability when a kid comes back to spend more time with them. Cutting teachers, cutting special ed staff, that makes it harder for us to complete those gaps, okay? But we're doing the very, very best that we can. Teachers are really stressed. More so, I mean, this is my 23rd year, more so than ever. We have more and more put on our plates, but we are doing the very, very best that we can for our kids. But I just want to remind you too, the entire world is in the middle of a pandemic. This is not just a Hampton pandemic. And all kids have suffered a loss. Let me just finish, Frank. All kids have suffered a loss. They're not, I have kids right now who may not be where my kids would have been 2 years ago. I have kids that are doing far better in other areas. Their compassion is skyrocketed because they're feeling things differently than they did. They have a greater depth of understanding, which is what a wonderful thing to be able to teach our children, right? That compassion for others. We were able to provide so much more for our kids with one-to-one computers. Many other areas, even in New Hampshire, were not able to do that. So while we have lost, and kids aren't necessarily where they were 2 years ago at this time of year, we are probably far further ahead than many others because we have so many things that others did not have. So I just want to remind everybody that, look, I know that we're data-driven, I know that we have to be, but we're kid-driven. We have to pay attention to our kids, and we have to make sure that we're giving them everything that we need. We have kids come in who they're in tears, they're upset about something. So yes, we're sending work home with them, but that's not all that we're doing. We're doing
Amy,
so much.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir, basically. I understand where the teachers are coming from. I know that they work hard, okay? I'm not taking that away from you, okay? What I've asked is basically, do we send math and English primarily home with them? Okay?
Well, I think she answered that.
Yeah, and you've answered that question. I guess, is it coming back? Because, you know, I look around, and this has no reflection on Marston, the Academy, or Center, okay? And I see kids playing basketball in their backyard, and I think, well, maybe they should be working on something, and they're out on COVID, I know that. You know, they haven't cut the class. But is there other opportunities like online courses that they could, you know, basic math courses or something that we could tell them that they should be taking or looking at, all right? Because I see it.
I'm going to, thank you, Amy.
I can't.
Thank you.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
But we're doing everything. We're providing everything that we possibly can for them. Please know that.
No, I understand.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Wendy?
it's not a question exactly, but no, you're okay, Amy. You're good. I mean, to Frank's point, yes, we have kids who are out for 5 days, 10 days at a time. They don't all have COVID. They're not all. I talked to Mrs. Costa last week, and we had, on that particular day, 120 kids out. That's going on 15% or more of our entire population of our kids. And you can send, as parents, you know, you can send work home with kids, but we don't have the staffing to have direct one-on-one remote teaching with these kids who are at home. It would be great if we did. I think that would be the ideal, would be if they're at home quarantining and they're not sick, that we could do remote teaching with them. We can't. We
Or
can-
if you
we
could
can
find the
barely-
staffing to do that.
Yes.
I mean, that's the other piece of
We
it.
can barely staff our in-person classes. And I guess the only other thing I wanted to say, and Amy touched on it, is that everyone is worried about, I'm not saying I'm not worried about the test numbers, but we are comparing their education and their progress to kids from 2 and 3 years ago who received a different education. They did. We are going on 2 years of disrupted education for the entire country. These kids are behind the kids from 2 years ago. They are not necessarily behind their peers. And I think that's an important thing to remember about all of them. We are working to catch up. I think it's possible they're not. I think it's possible we are going to have kids who are going to graduate from high school who are never going to fully recover that time lost. And everybody's doing the best that they can with that. The teachers are still in full pandemic mode, and there is a limit to how much extra time they can spend making up all of this when, you know, we've got kids, we don't have enough substitutes. You know, if we've got a teacher out for 2 weeks because their family has COVID, you know, there are days when some of these kids are having 6 different substitutes in a day. And so what kind of content are they able to get from those teachers? And that's just the way things are right now. And it's the way it's going to be for probably at least the rest of this school year. And we don't know what next school year is going to bring.
Thank you.
We can't,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we can't fix that problem, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's a third part of the partnership that goes with education. There's teachers, there's students, and there's parents. At this time, we all have to step up to the plate and help. And if you have a parent, if you're a parent of a child that is home a lot, you have to go over the work that the teachers are sending home. You have a responsibility to your child to help them along. And I realize right now parents are stressed. I see it every day. But everyone is stressed and we've got to work together. And I think we've got to figure out how we can help the 6th and 7th graders and 6th and 7th graders this year so that their scores aren't at 30% next year. We've just got to figure out, and I don't know what the solution is, but I think we need to sit down and think about it and figure out what we can do to help.
I'm going to close this discussion because I think we could go on easily for another hour and a half, and I'm not sure. But I wanted to thank the administrators and Dr. Costa for bringing this information to us, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this quite a bit as we move on. Dave, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just wanted to refer you back to the STAR assessment. That is the assessment we all gave in the fall. Take a look at they're based on proficiency as well. So you can actually see that we have made growth and progress. I never compare ourselves to the state average, but you know, and math is obviously something that we love and it challenges us. But we didn't spend any time going, hey, those language arts teachers, those social studies and science teachers did a great job getting them ready for the ELA test. They scored 70%. The state average is 52%. Take a look.
Yep.
Our kids did pretty well. Everything is relative in this world, I get it. But I would put our teachers and our kids up against anybody in the state, and I think we did pretty well on that one. But look back, I know you just got that handed to you, so take a look at the STAR scores from all through, or the...
Can I clarify
iReady.
something? Because I think you might have misspoke. When you presented the last slide on the STAR assessments this fall, this is the present 8th graders. So just to clarify, present 8th graders, and STAR is aligned with the New Hampshire SAS. They're on track, and in the fall, they were at almost 60% in math. This is 8th grade, and they were 64% in language arts. So they're on track. This current 8th grade, based on fall assessment scores, started off the year at 60 to 64%. So I think, to David's point, we are moving in the right direction. So
they went from 52% in the spring to 60% in the fall.
different cohort, remember. Last year's 8th graders
Are in freshman.
yeah. So it's really your
we don't know
7th.
where they are.
It's your 7th graders that were at 52 and 74 last year,
are now at 59 and 64 in the fall. Because remember, your 7th graders become your 8th graders.
Right.
So you can see they're already working to close those gaps. So I just want you to know that we are going to stay on top of it, and I don't think it's as I think we're moving in the right direction as the New Hampshire Star, as the STAR assessments show us. But I'm very anxious, like all of you, to see what the winter looked like. So we'll be in touch. Does that sound like a good plan?
It does. As I said, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda, coaches, directors, advisors, job descriptions. Mr. O'Connor, I had asked for these to be put together, and I appreciate them in our phone, except one of the things, or some of the things that I'm looking for each one of these, and it would be very helpful for the next negotiations that we do, is for each one of these, number of students typically involved
Okay.
in the activity, number of weeks that the activity typically lasts, number of students.
So these are the ones all outside of coaching, is that correct? The clubs and advisors?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them. Wait a minute, maybe I can find the other.
I'd be glad to add to
A
it.
typical number of students, typical number of days per week. Is it Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday? Typical number of hours per week, and perhaps a number of contests. Information for each one,
Okay.
and I know it changes from year to year, but typical, in a typical year. I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
But the rest of the descriptions are terrific.
When do you need that by?
No worry now.
We'll work on it. Absolutely. Thank you.
No hurry now. Thank you. COVID-19 update we already had.
Yep, we did that.
The
Mariah's report?
Well, I'm just going through the agenda.
Okay.
Keith, before you go, the next item on the agenda is the plaques for Hampton Academy.
Keith and I just need to get together and go walk around the building, and we just haven't had a chance yet.
Okay?
I'll have
Good.
my people call your people.
You want me to bring it back next month or just let it go?
No, let it go.
Okay.
I texted him, but I don't think he got my text.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is enrollment, and I just had one quick question on the enrollment.
Sure.
The total enrollment for January 1st, is it 957?
It is, but we have a number of new students that are starting this week. We have 2 at Center, a few at Hampton Academy. That number's going to change.
Okay.
Yeah, we're pretty flat. In fact, we might be a couple up, just so you know.
It's just moving back.
Yeah, we're in that 960 to 970 range. We will be. Yeah.
Okay. Monthly financials.
Yes, so you have my December report. I am this week working on W-2s and 1099s. And once that's done, we have received pretty much all of the retirees' letters that you've gotten. So I'm going to be looking at those and putting them encumbered into the budget for the next budget, so we have an idea where we'll be at. I think that will be helpful. And looking at the food program financials, it looks like that as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to hit the negative. I think that we're doing rather well for food service. It looks negative because it's always a month behind in revenues, but I put the revenues sheets behind the report, and then you can see that the revenues overseed the expenses on that. So that looks well. Our federal grants, this month I gave you Title I. The breakdown for Title I, what we've used for the past 2 years, last year and this year. So if you look over that and you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me if you have any questions on what we utilize that money for. We have, like Jenny said, the public hearing this Thursday I'll be here. We'll have some flyers. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me for that. Also, the deliberative session is Monday, February 7th, and that's here at the auditorium. And then I wanted to update you that the school district clerk received and verified 45 plus good signatures for the petition warrant for Sacred Heart. And that was required and will be now included in the warrant article.
Has somebody notified the principal of Sacred Heart that we have the public hearing on Monday night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
On
I
Thursday night.
sent them all the dates.
Okay.
Yep. And then after Thursday, this Friday, I will have the signed warrant article and proposed budget if it gets signed. And I'll have it posted at the town hall and library. And I will also have it on our website with previous presentations and slideshows and other information that I've done. And that's at the SAU 90 website. And if you go under operations and then under budget and elections, you'll have all that information will be posted there too. The draft warrant article and budget is there now. And presentations are there if people are interested in looking at that.
Any questions from Mariah?
No, but thank you for giving us those grant updates. Yeah, I'm going to try to give you, we have 20 grants right now that we're working on, The so. way you're doing it is perfect. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, policy review. I'm going to take these one at a time, okay, because we've made a change to at least the first one.
Yes, we did.
BBB, and we changed that, shall consist of 5 members. So this is, with that change, this is a second read.
Yeah, on page 46 in your book.
Right.
And it's highlighted for you.
Anyone want to make a motion for that? Policy, Ginny, second, Andrea, discussion. All those in favor? Okay, so that's that one. Then we have the BBC. This is the second read. Someone want to make a motion on that one?
I'll make a motion.
Frank, seconded Andrea. Discussion on BBC. All those in favor? Okay. BBE, it's vacancies and unexpired term fulfillment options. This is about school board. This is the second read. Someone want to make a motion on that? Frank, seconded Andrea. All those in favor? Okay. So we got that one. Non-public sessions, this is BEC. Someone want to make a motion on that? Andrea? Seconded Wendy. This is a second read. All in favor? Okay. Sorry. BEG. This is about minutes. And it's 5 pages. Someone want to make a motion on that one? Moved Frank, seconded Andrea. All those in favor? Okay. EBCA, crisis,
Emergency plans.
emergency plan, crisis prevention, motion. Ginny, seconded Frank. All those in favor? Okay. ILCIM. Okay.
What?
No, I'm sorry. Okay.
JLCJA.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is emergency plan for sports-related injuries. Someone want to make a motion on that? Andrea, seconded. Wendy. All those in favor? Okay. And then we have criminal records check. This is GBCD. Second read. Moved. Andrea, seconded. Wendy. All those in favor? Okay. And then we have GBEAB, mandatory code of conduct reporting all employees, second read, moved Wendy, seconded Frank. All those in favor? Okay. And then we have JC, which is student conduct.
JIC? Yep.
JIC, I'm sorry. It's 3 pages. Someone want to make a motion on that one? Frank, seconded Andrea. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And then we have a GDF, which is the hiring of non-certified personnel. And I can't find it in my packet. Not in the packet? Okay.
Did everybody get one of these, Lois? This was the one you gave me.
Is that from last
Our
time?
meeting.
Yes, it was. Yep.
Did everybody get this or just me and Andrew?
Just you and Andrea.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we agreed we're just not
We-
going to
we-
change it. We're going
Right,
to keep
we-
it.
We agreed
We're
that
just-
we're going to keep it.
As
We
is.
also talked about
How we might
a line of
Implement it.
communication
Okay,
that
all
we
right.
would open up.
So the devil's in the details for that one.
Yep.
Right.
So GDF is going to remain the same.
Yep, we're keeping it.
Do we have to vote that?
No.
No, I don't think
Because
so.
it's already there.
It's already there. Okay, and we have minutes. We have the minutes of December 14th. I did have a question. If you look on the first page, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, is that right? Or is it the final 14 fish that made into a calendar?
Yeah,
Where-
it was a
which
fish
page you
calendar.
on?
Yeah, it was the fish prints
I'm on-
that Jenny Houston.
That's
had
what I
done.
thought, but I just, page 47.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
was the fish print.
So it was 14
It could say
fish.
the final 14 fish prints.
There you go.
Or drawings or whatever.
There you go. Any,
Whatever.
any other corrections? So this is for the December 14th. Somebody want to make a motion? Frank?
Motion to accept.
This is public. Second, Wendy? Okay. All those in favor? All right. Then we have non-public somewhere here. December 14th, non-public.
I'll make a motion. to
Frank,
accept.
seconded. Wendy? All those in favor? Aye, so those are accepted. And then we have some budget work, and I think we can take these all together. We've got October 20th, October 28th, November 10th, and November 17th. Those were all those budget meetings that we had. We
I
can
make a
take,
motion, we accept.
we accept them, okay. Second, Wendy, and Wendy. And, all those in favor? Okay, so that takes care of that. I know we had quite a few things to sign. Has everybody signed those, Mariah?
Everything got signed, thank you.
I didn't get any correspondence. And does anybody want to go into non-public for something? Okay. Next school board meeting will be February 8th. And reminder that there's a budget meeting Thursday. What time?
7 o'clock
7 o'clock here.
here,
Thursday, 7 o'clock here.
In the cafeteria.
in the
correct?
Right here.
right here.
Right here, okay.
Yeah.
And I would accept a motion to adjourn. Moved Frank, seconded Andrea. All those in favor? We are adjourned.